Great defeaters, new and old, welcome back to another episode of The Breakdown with your host, BaseDaKID. And Tony will be in the building shortly, he's just taking care of something. But I want to start the show on time for the people, respect you guys, respect your time, and try and get you out of here as soon as possible. I'm potentially going to be recording some content later on afterwards to upload tomorrow. Casual stream will be on Thursday this week, not Wednesday, same time. But yeah, I got a couple things I need to do tomorrow. So yeah, I thought let's get this show on the road. Let's get all this good stuff, popping. So yeah, without further ado, let me get into the chat. Let me greet the people who are here already. Have a couple little interesting takes, talk about a few things here and there. Let me know if the sound's good. Let me know if picture's all good, nothing's crackly, and then we can kind of get into it. But first and foremost, untraceable number one in the house today. Salute to you, sir. Philip Answer in the building. A valiant second. Shout out to Philip. Dan the man, SC15, hardest working guy on Twittex. You know what the deal is. Yasmin Malik, shout out to you, Yasmin. Hope you're well. It's the Tyler MF Durden in the building. Jonah 31 in the building. Man like Tony Lyons. Barakas as well. And as you guys can see, the co-host, Tony, the pugilist boy, fashionably late as always. But again, as I said, he had a little something he had to take care of. But it's always nice to see him. But yeah, Tony, let the people know how you're doing. I'm sure they're very interested to hear about your tales.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, guys. Literally lastminute.com, I had to deal with a bank transfer issue. You know how those are. Lastminute.com, you try to make a purchase. The fraud squad rang me and they were like, did this happen? Did this happen? So yeah, not going into that. I am well, thank you, Base. I have had an amazing 8 days out, or 8 and a bit days out in Paris and Lyon. Enjoyed some good boxing action. Enjoyed some good athletics. Yeah, it's been a really enjoyable Olympics. For those who want to follow my antics on that, there are daily update videos on my social channel, which are there. So there's a video per day of events that occurred. I did meet up with Dani from Fightfantvlive. We were both in attendance at various events. We spent some good time together, and yeah, it was a very successful Olympics as far as I'm concerned. I know some people are naysayers. Why did this person get allowed to compete? What was this? What was that? Even the poor young lady who tried her very best at breakdancing received a lot of flack. Unnecessarily, I felt. But, 99% of the Olympics is a glorified success. You take away the stupidity in the opening ceremony. You take away the madness of the girls trying to enter into a stadium to compete in their 100-meter race, all of those silly things which do spoil the fun for some. The rest of it is an amazing event and is well officiated and well organized for both the public in the event and outside. But yeah, I will be telling more tales on that in days to come. How you doing, Base? Oh, volume. Mute. You're muted.
Hopefully that works a bit better now.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, everything's okay on this side. I had a bit of a less interesting time. It's amazing how you asked me how I am and then decide to put up pictures of yourself. I mean, that's like the nastiest of nasty work. Ladies and gentlemen, you see what I have to deal with. Like the man's literally asked me about myself and then he's posting up pictures of what he's getting up to. I mean, you might as well have not asked me or waited.
Bro, they're listening to you, but they can visually see.
No, because it's just like that's just a certain levels of disrespect I've come to expect from you right now. The people in the chat know how badly I'm treated on this channel. I think they realize that now.
Oh,
Anyway,
guys and girls, give Base his flowers. Thank you so much for taking the show up last week in my
see, no,
absence.
Danny said it. See, so self-centered. Exactly. That exactly.
Oh dear. I don't see pictures of Base and Danny and Lexi up on his channel. It's always Danny. You think it was a one-person channel?
That's fine. But guess what? Like, he's not gonna ask me how I'm doing, then start showing shit about himself. Like, that's just nasty work.
Big up to all the supporters in the chat, as
But yeah,
Base has already given you the roll call.
I have indeed, except for a man like Clyde, obviously, who just popped in. So shout out to Clyde, and obviously,
respect.
as he said, Fight Fan TV, Dani Glover himself. Big ups to Danny. And I didn't see much of Danny's stories, but I did see the infamous the drinks and the food posts. You know, I know October's always getting onto him about actually filming relevant stuff, but I guess the food is relevant. But yeah, shout out to him. Anyway, look, let's get into it. We're about 6-7 minutes in now. And I know the people want to hear us talk about some boxing. So with that being said, I wanna start, right?
Okay.
I think it's best that we start with what could be arguably knockout of the year contender and the fight which preceded it in Luis Alberto Lopez, aka El Venado Lopez, and Angelo Leo. I know you just recently watched the fight, Tony. So because you watched it most recently, it's most fresh in your mind. Go for it. Let the people know your thoughts, how you saw it playing out, and ultimately how things, transpired.
Okay, so guys, just so you're aware, I was obviously very busy with Olympic shenanigans, so I wasn't able to watch things live because I was actually out Saturday night partying hard, as you would do, as you'd expect. But yeah, on further inspection and having seen the footage of the knockout, it was, as you can see, the action here, Lopez was under the cosh from Leo. Leo came out, looks like, he knew what he was up against, a really hard hitter. Now, the thing I've always said about Venado Lopez is he's very flat-footed. He doesn't mind standing in front of you. And on this occasion, that was the undoing of him, because he literally was saying, I can take whatever you give me because I'm going to knock you out eventually with my big hooks. And Leo just basically was saying, okay, I know what time it is. I'm going to be in amongst this. And there you see, he took a shot himself, but he was ready to deliver on that dropped right hand from Venado. And it was a beautiful left hook, an absolute thing of beauty. So yeah, definitely a contender for knockout of the year. We have a new champion in Antonio Leo. What's his name?
Angelo,
that's it. Angelo Leo. And we look forward to seeing further action from him going forward. Base, I'll leave you to deep dive this one.
Pause. So I've got to say one thing to Fight Fan, obviously, because I know me and him we've spoken about, like PBC fighters or TMT fighters, etc. And this is definitely one I got wrong. I did play into the narrative a little bit. I probably should have thought a bit more about the styles of each person. Although I did think ultimately the pressure and just the awkwardness of Lopez would kind of be, would basically be a bit too much overall, especially considering that even that was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, like Leo is the one coming up from 122, whereas Lopez has obviously been comfortable at 126 for pretty much his entire career. So I thought that there might be a little bit of a size difference there in that sense. But this is one of those very rare occasions where the the PBC fighter actually beats the top ranked guy. It doesn't happen very often, but this was one of them. And when it does happen, it's emphatic, as we saw. But when you kind of look at the fight, now this is a fight I haven't. While I watched it, I think I watched it 1.5 times. I'm gonna say, because the first time I wasn't really taking too much. I wasn't taking sort of too much of the action in, but it was. I definitely saw that Leo's game plan was definitely to basically stay within range, stay close to Lopez, and every time Lopez either tried to exchange or took like sort of a half a step forward or lifted a foot off of the ground to make a move, that's when Leo would normally strike to the body. And you could kind of tell that at that moment, because you're up in the air, your diaphragm's up a little bit, so he was trying to take the air out of Lopez from early on. And there was many rounds where I was kind of watching it where I felt like, well, Leo, I think Leo's like quite well ahead in this fight. But I heard the commentators and everyone saying, oh no, they've got it kind of even, it looks kind of square. I couldn't really reconcile that in my mind. I'm like, Angelo Leo looks like he's giving my guy the business. And then anytime that Lopez came back, especially with the uppercuts, those lead hand or those backhand uppercuts from in close, Leo looked like he was hurt on several occasions, but then all of a sudden he'd come back from like a big swaying movement, like he's about to get ready to get rocked, and then just drop like 3 or 4 big shots to the body. And I don't think Lopez was prepared to deal with someone that had the same kind of work rate as him and was being able to work actually being able to work inside his exchanges and inside his combos, which obviously therefore he wasn't bracing himself for certain shots. So there's many times where he looked really, really under the cosh, really surprised, really hurt at times, really winded. And this is all coming from the perspective of a guy who's not that big of a puncher. Angelo Leo's record prior to that was 24-1. And of those 24 wins, there was only 11 KOs. So obviously less than a 50% ratio. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't hit. But, you would say to yourself, it would kind of mean that, if you're the big puncher, you probably feel that you can take his power a little bit more. And ultimately, that wasn't the case. But again, all of that investment to the body, all of that investment to the, flood in the basement, as they call it, it was paying dividends, because Lopez isn't the most structured fighter in the first place, and his shape was just coming apart at the seams from sort of rounds 5, 6, 7 onwards. And as we saw, one lazy jab which barely even connected, and for some reason people call it they was calling it like it was a catch counter. No, it was just a slip. He just slipped the jab and threw the perfect left hook just off the side of it. And again, with Lopez being, number one, fundamentally unsound, and then also tired, he just let the right hand slip. He had it up against the chin where it was supposed to be, and he dropped it in a split moment of madness. And ultimately, bang, we saw what took place afterwards. It was a brilliant knockout. It very well could be knockout of the year contender. I mean, we've still got about a good 4.5 months to go of the year before we can say for certain. But let's not forget there have been some other very, very special knockouts that have taken place. So while it could be one of the front runners, it's not a foregone conclusion. That's kind of my thoughts on it. It was a really good clash of styles, and it was a really good action-packed fight, which is always pleasing to the fans. 2 pressure fighters fighting each other. One of them just a bit more comfortable in chaos, but the other one a lot more well structured in how they create their chaos. And we clearly saw how that took place and how that transpired. So yeah, it was a great fight. Unfortunately, it was very unfortunate. It was just superseded and preceded by another fight which arguably was fight of the year contender, and you're not going to get the same level of shine and opportunity after such a scrap. So it's a good thing that knockout happened, because at least that gave the fight and gave people something to talk about the fight, because it was never going to get the fight of the night or the fight of the year status when it came to yeah, just the overall action. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on it. I can see Philip in the chat say dropped like a bag of laundry. Yep. Philip, you are correct. Angelo Leo, he's not with Pro Box, but he did box on Pro Box. Pro Box themselves, they don't actually have people under contract. But they do, obviously they do one fight deals with people for the channel. Or they may have like one or sort of 2 fight deals, but the people aren't signed to them. They can kind of go wherever they're needed. But yeah, ProBox has been it's been one of the great tools, because even though they don't have any like really big marquee, superstar fights, every fight that they put on are well matched people. There's never any A side, B side, run out, tune ups. The people they match, they may not be the biggest of names, they may not be the best of fighters, but they always seem to be evenly matched, and they create really good shows. So whenever their shows do come on, even though I don't stay up and watch them, I do try and check out highlights or try and watch some of the fights if I hear good things, because I definitely appreciate that. Sporty Sport, what's happened with Leo's daddy, Steph Fulton? Yeah, he went from being man of the division to prelims fighter, but it's his own fault. He should have signed the contract in Japan when they gave it to him. Talking about he wanted to come back to the US, even though he said the only time he ever been promoted or ever been shown love was when he was in Japan. So should have signed over there. They had very lucrative fights for him, nice big deal as well, and he chose to come back here. And then you see everyone else jumping ship on the PBC, but he decided to stay there, and now he's on, Twitter X moaning about being on the prelims. Well, talk to your manager. That simple. Sporty Sport. Did you see the Olympics? Kasiak. Kisiak, the Ukrainian gold medalist, who reminds me of Bohachuk, keeps moving forward and doesn't stop throwing punches. Tony probably will know more about that. I actually did not watch anything from the Olympics, barring I saw 2 women's fights. Iman Khalif wasn't actually one of the women. I remember I saw the one from the what's the team, the No Nation team, the refugee team, the black girl who was from the UK. I saw that one of her earlier bouts, and I saw another one the other day. Outside of that, the Olympics wasn't really for me this year. I've not seen anything, not even the track and field athletics, which is usually what I watch the Olympics for. I just took no interest in it. Let's see, they did a good job keeping him active, unlike the PBC. Yeah, 100%, Philip. Tony, anything else you want to kind of say on that? And Philip is Ellis Palmer saying you to get off your phone. So always watching
Ellis,
the
the reason
football.
I'm on my phone is I'm still uploading content. So, you guys missed out on the content last week. Hopefully you will appreciate that we got content back. So, it is what it is. There was another fight on the undercard, which I don't know if you got to saw the Delgado, but looked like a bit of a firefight as well.
I didn't see it. I was only able to watch the main event.
Okay. I mean, I will show what little I have of it. It was Delgado versus Flores, junior welterweight. Looked like a bit of a barnstormer. Again, I haven't seen the whole fight, but the action I got does show the two of them did really go for it. Some big punches for junior welterweights.
You can't have all this dead air, Tony. You got to react to what you're seeing.
Now you can see it's kind of even Stevens in terms of the way the action is going. 20-0 Lindolfo Delgado was fighting Brian Flores, who was 26-0 with one draw. This was for the WBO Latino Super Lightweight Championship. Flores was dropped in the third. It was deducted a low blow in round 7. And in the end, this ended up as a split decision win for Lindolfo Delgado. So that's the action from that card. I take it there's no other bouts on that card you want to talk about?
No, not particularly. There was no one else that was in 50-50-ish type matches from what I can remember.
Okay.
Before we
I
go
just
to...
want to...
Oh, go on.
Can I just
Go
address
ahead.
a point from Ellis Palmer about boxing at the Olympics? So boxing is not in the current schedule for the Olympics, but I have it on good word that it is definitely going to be reconsidered to be added to the LA Olympics, and that there's a very, very good chance that it will be added. Obviously, the IBA, which was running boxing in the 2020 Olympics, were removed from being allowed to manage the sport, and the IOC instead took up the mantle. There is a possibility that somebody else might step in and allow themselves the opportunity to run the whole show to the IOC's liking. But I don't believe there was anything that the IOC were unhappy with in regards to the way the boxing program went this year. There was controversy at the start with Emaine Khalif, who I actually saw fight in her final bout. I was there on that night. But that issue was blown out of all proportion because of the reaction of the Italian fighter and the very quick reaction by the press to jump on the fact that Emaine Khalif had been disqualified from previous world championships because of potential XY chromosome. The issue has not been fully resolved in that all the information pertaining to her sexuality or her genetics hasn't completely been validated, but the knowledge is she is a woman. She was born a woman with female genitalia. She has periods. She can get pregnant, and therefore she boxes as a woman because she is a woman. Now, if she has, even in that XY chromosome, then technically she could be having some advantages. Obviously, heightened testosterone being one of those issues. However, as I said, I saw her in her final. I saw her in other fights. And quite honestly, she ain't no man. Yeah? And very, I was the first to jump up and say, hey, if this is a man, I'm effing outraged. Because that is one thing I have always been really afraid of, is the potential of a man changing sex and competing against women and using unbelievable male strength in an arena where that shouldn't happen. If you're playing darts or snooker, fine. Transition, play away, because those are sports where we aren't hitting each other. Obviously, there was similarities between the Emaine Khalif case and that of Caster Semenya, who's competed as an athlete in 800 and 1500 previously. But in this situation, I believe that all the necessary information was provided. There's still some that hasn't been clarified, but all that was necessary has been clarified. And I believe she, was at the end of the day the best fighter in her weight division and deserves the gold medal that she received. But boxing will definitely be considered for the next Olympics. Fight fan Dani has also confirmed, I have it on good authority, boxing will be in 2028. And as you said, I've seen chicks with strong faces on the ends of Emaine's face. Is nothing to write home about. Yeah, that's the honest truth. In fact, it's funny you say that, because I was just looking at this Gabriela Fundora opponent and thinking to myself, she looks kind of butch. Yeah, Sporty Sport mentioning about Semenya having to take testosterone reducing meds. I don't know about the need for Emain Khalif to take such product, but I guess at some point in time, some of these issues will be resolved, and we'll be able to move on with our sport in good fettle. There was another young lady, I think it was a Chinese young lady, who also had been banned from last year's World Championships because of XY chromosome. She didn't win her gold medal from the best of my knowledge. So can we get back to the main topic? All right. Where do you want to go next, Base?
Okay. After that very unexpected segue, let's talk very briefly. All right, I just want to give 2 quick shout outs to both Cecilia Breakers for her very I won't say dominant, but her very convincing win over Maricela Cornejo, who any of you who do know probably know her because she fought Clarissa Shields last year, June, as a late replacement. When the Hannah Gabriel's fight, the rematch fell out due to her testing positive for apparent steroid cream for her dog. So obviously make of that what you guys will. And Lou DiBella's, his stance on PEDs and stuff, it definitely changed when that situation took place. It also changed when it took place with what's his name? What's the French guys? The French Canadian brother.
Christian and Billy?
No, not Billy. Keep his name out of this. The old one, the one who was supposed to face Joshua Bohachuk, and they say he didn't want to take he didn't want to write the testing into the contract. Oh, that's gonna annoy me now. Someone in the chat's gonna comment. I know someone in the chat's gonna have it, and it's gonna and you. John Pascal, that's it. Thank you very much, Philip. Yes. So anyway, so Maricela Cornejo, but Cecilia Breakers basically stepped to her. She stepped on the front foot, and she actually acted like a pressure fighter a bit more in this fight. Caught Maricela with some very good hooks on the inside, some very good straight punches, dig into the body quite a bit. Even managed to drop Maricela in, I think it was round 6. Although I think Maricela was not happy about that, believing that there was a tanglement of legs. It wasn't seen on any of the replays, so all we saw was a punch land and then her end up going over. So yeah, with that kind of being said, she ended up winning that fight 96-93. So shout out to the First Lady. I'm actually going to reach out to her, see if I can get her on the channel in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully that'll be a good bit of business. We have spoken in the past very briefly. So yeah, so there's that, and then also a quick shout out to Gabriela Fondora for her fight against Daniela Asenjo. It was 16-3-3, but Gabriela, as you can see there, 5'9", 110. She didn't even need to make the 112-pound limit. She probably could have made 108 if she really wanted to. I don't understand how she manages to squeeze all of that body down to like 112 pounds. It's crazy. She is 22, so I know that when it comes to her mid to late 20s, I can quite easily see her being up at featherweight, possibly super feather. She might even have enough size to go up to to lightweight or welterweight if she really wanted to. Sporty Sport, her relationship to Sebastian is he is her older brother. He's 6'6" and she's 5'9", so you can tell they are very big family. Although I've actually seen their dad, and their dad's not anywhere near as tall as Sebastian. I think he's only maybe an inch or so taller than Gabriela. So yeah, but shout out to her. She got hit with a couple more shots than I'm used to seeing her get hit with, but every time she got hit is when she was really committing to her shots. and she was really trying to put some stank and some mustard on each one of those hot dogs, as you know, some of the Americans might say. And yeah, there is, you know, shout outs to Arsenio, because she's a Chilean boxer. There's not many of them about, but she's tough, because she took some shots where I was expecting her to get taken out, or at least get dropped. But she managed to weather them, and she tried to stay in the fight all the way to the end, never gave it up. So tried to put on a good display, but ultimately it was a very clear 100-90 scorecard, and there was no real complaints about that. Gabriella was just too heavy-handed, just had too much control of the range. Still is very good at using that southpaw stance and that southpaw lead jab. So I just wanted to, give her some props for that. Go ahead.
Can I just say I did actually watch that fight today, because I actually like Gabrielle Fondora's boxing style. I think she's got great footwork. You know, she was, you know, very good at distance control in this fight. You know, you knew that Asensio was going to try and get inside of her long levers and try to hurt her on the inside. But Gabriella, to her credit, you know, kept control of the whole 12 rounds and basically managed Asensio as an opponent very well, using, you know, her own long levers, the jab, essentially, you know, punching from long and mid-range and not trying to get too close in. Although, having said that, you know, she wasn't in the sort of Shakur Stevenson's school of box and retreat and not get hit. You know, she did sit down on some of her punches and try to actually hurt Asensio, which was pleasing, because that will obviously bide her well in the future when she gets harder punchers, who she has to face, that she has to be able to, you know, grit her teeth and try and hurt those girls as best as she can to stop them overcoming her with aggression. So yeah, very good performance from Gabriella. I was very pleased with that one.
Yeah, and then sort of last little quick shout and a quick word is Charles Conwell, who basically he was obviously auditioning for the winner of the main event, him being another super welterweight junior middleweight at the Golden Boy stables. He was 19-0 at the time with 14 KOs. He's now 20-0 with 15 KOs. He now has the same record that Lindolfo Delgado had prior to his bout on the weekend. But yeah, that's sort of what he's looking at. One that he beat Kyrie Gray in the second round with a body shot. Kyrie Gray was always just supposed to be it was almost like a stay busy / tune up / show reel fight to show what you can do, maybe get a bit of a buzz. But yeah, good for Conwell's, kept him active. Hopefully he can either get his next fight against maybe the loser probably of that main event, or he can just get that parlayed into another quick fight and then get some pretty good fights next year. But yeah, it was you know, like I said, it wasn't really much to it. It's funny because Kyrie Gray looks very much like Andy Cruz, but he doesn't fight anything like him. So yeah, it was always sort of one-way traffic from there. But it is what it is. Quick 2 rounds, nothing really more to speak about. So if you got any quick comments on him and his trajectory.
No, I didn't see it, buddy. Sorry.
Okay, cool. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, look, let's get to the main event. This is obviously where all of the quote-unquote controversy and all the split opinions and everything has kind of taken place. But first and foremost, let's just say this is and was a tremendous fight. And again, as we've said, it is in contention for Fight of the Year. It may not win that, especially on my awards, but it's got as good a chance as any other fight that I've seen. Just a tremendous war between. Yes, Tony saw very quickly what happened there. He's done it again, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it's just a tremendous war between two very, very hungry young fighters, very different styles, very different dimensions, but they're both of them are pressure type fighters. Virgil Ortiz is a pressure boxer puncher, and Bohachuk is very much, again, a boxer puncher with a lot of pressure that he adds as well. So they both have that pressure in style, and because of that, both of them essentially stayed on the front foot and stayed in front of each other for the majority of the fight until the second half, where Ortiz decided to actually move and box on the back foot to show that he can have to move and box. And part of that, I think, is because Bohachuk made him have to change up his game plan in order to stay effective. But that doesn't take away from the fact, yeah, Bohachuk did very well behind the straight jabs and the 1-2s and a couple of the hooks and the uppercuts. Ortiz, you know, a lot of his shots were looping. They were more short. They were hooks. They were sharp. They were snappy. They was in the pocket. He had pretty good head movement. He managed to evade quite a lot of Bohachuk's shots, whereas when Bohachuk, he was having to take more of Ortiz's shots on the gloves, as opposed to actually being able to slip and ride them. But it was just a really, really good, a really great fight to watch. Now, let's get to the way I scored this fight personally. So, in the first round, I believed that Virgil Ortiz was winning, sort of winning the round up until when he ends up getting knocked down by a straight right hand, which looks like it lands towards the back of the head. Looks like his legs sort of slip out a little bit. It wasn't called a knockdown initially, but it ended up being revisited via instant replay, and then 4 rounds later they ended up calling it. Now, normally that does kind of give you, most people normally give it a 10-8 round for obviously a knockdown, especially if the opponent is in control of the round. But me personally, I don't think Bohachuk was in control of the round. I've watched it 3 times, and the majority of the shots that he threw, every time I watched it, they either landed on gloves or they were slipped. Whereas a lot of the jabs, the body work and everything from Virgil Ortiz was actually came through, and it was, and they were scoring. They were landing face, body. They were landing in scoring areas. So even though I had to give Bohachuk the round based on the 10-point must system, I still feel like Ortiz won the round despite the knockdown. So I ended up giving it to Bohachuk 10-9. Then rounds 2 and 3, I thought were very clear Ortiz rounds. So, those ended up being 9-10 to him. Round 4 was a big 10-9 round to Sergey Bohachuk. Round 5, I scored it a draw, 10-10. I do believe that of the two of them, Ortiz did the better work overall and probably should have been awarded the round, but I didn't. But I felt that Bohachuk did enough that he didn't deserve to lose the round either, because it was a very, very competitive round. So if I would have given it to anyone, it would have been Ortiz, but I scored it a draw. Round 6, I gave 9-10 to Ortiz as well. Round 7, I gave 10-9 to Sergey Bohachuk. Round 8, I gave to Sergey Bohachuk. Obviously, he caught Ortiz with a very flash knockdown. But prior to that knockdown, I believe that Ortiz landed the better shots more consistently. Bohachuk did score some decent shots, but again, I thought Ortiz landed better before the knockdown, and then after the knockdown, I think he pretty much, I believe he dominated the round after that. Yes, he got caught with 1 or 2 shots afterwards, but he pressed the action. He caught Bohachuk body, head. He had him look like he was staggering a few times. I don't think Bohachuk takes the best shot. He recovers well, but I don't think he takes the best shot, and I don't think he's got great balance, which maybe exaggerates how hurt or how much he's affected by a shot. But to me, he was getting pinged around. So again, another round where it could have been a 10-8. I scored it 10-9 to Bohachuk because I believe that Ortiz came back and won the round. in round 9, I scored the 9th round to Virgil Ortiz. I scored the 10th round to Virgil Ortiz, and I scored the 11th to Ortiz as well. But the 12th round, I scored the 12th, a draw. Again, it was a round where I felt that Virgil he landed the more impactful, he landed the better shots, but Bohachuk stayed with him the entire round. And to me, because he managed to stay with him and he threw back and was never sort of overawed, again, it was a round where this one was a swing. This wasn't a case of, okay, Ortiz is winning, but Bohachuk doesn't deserve anything, or he deserves not to kind of lose it. It was like a pick 'em, but because I couldn't really split the two of them, I gave it as a draw. So on my scorecard, I ended up having the bout 114, 116 to Ortiz. Now, if we looked at both of the, I've seen a lot of people say that they felt the first round, Sergey Bohachuk actually, either won it or was very, very competitive throughout, plus the knockdown. So give that the 10-8. If that was the case, then my scorecard would be 114, 115. And if you had to give 10-8s for both of them, then ultimately it would have been a draw on my scorecard. Because again, I had it 4 rounds to Bohachuk, 6 rounds to Ortiz, and then 2 rounds even. And of those 2 rounds, if I was to split both of them, I could split both of them, and Ortiz would have, again, it would have ended up being a draw again. 113, 113. Or if I gave them both to Bohachuk, then obviously he wins the fight. 114, 112. If I was to give them both to Ortiz, then it's 112, 114. So yeah, it was one of those fights. I know a lot of people have said, "Oh, like Bohachuk won, or he got, he got robbed, or whatever." I don't think so. Yes, the 2 knockdowns are a factor, but the way I scored it, the way I saw the fight, that's how I perceived it to be. There was just a lot more slipping of shots by Ortiz, and you can kind of see that by the CompuBox stats, even though we can't always just go off of those. But the fact that Bohachuk, I think, threw over 100 punches more and was outlanded by, I think, 45 punches, tells you who was obviously being more effective with their punching throughout the majority of the fight. It showed that he was outlanded in, I think, 8 of the, is either 7 or 8 of the rounds, even though he threw more in all of those rounds. So yeah, I guess, it definitely comes down to what do you like. Some people had it one way, others had it the other. It was one of those genuine fights where I think a rematch is warranted, just to clear up any confusion. I know that probably won't happen, but yeah, it was just a brilliant fight to watch. So I'm done talking. Tony, go for it. Let the people know what you felt about the fight.
So I didn't watch the entire fight. Again, I'm sort of playing catch up, but hopefully you saw a bit of the content. You saw that, this was definitely a very highly competitive fight, with 2 fighters both showing themselves to be wanting to assert their domination on the other opponent. From what I saw, and without sort of looking at every minute of every round, I felt that Virgil Ortiz just did the slightly better work. There were times specifically where I looked at Bohachuk's footwork and he just seemed to get planted on his feet, when Virgil, who uses a good amount of head movement. The one thing between the 2 guys, and maybe if I just show this clip, you see Virgil has more head movement than Bohachuk. And as a result, when Virgil's throwing his punches, Bohachuk's head is not really far from where he's throwing the punches. Whereas when Bohachuk throws, you'll often see, as you can see, movement from Ortiz's head. I like that Ortiz, as you see there, good body punching, but even though he's quite dominant there, throwing those shots, he does still receive some responses by way of counters from Bohachuk, who does very well. And then in this slightly earlier part of the fight, you know, you see Bohachuk using the jab, which he was able to do a little bit more effectively. I felt he threw a few more jabs than Ortiz, who was, in my view, looking more for those explosive hooks, trying to counter punch Bohachuk at this point. There you go with that, you know, big overhand right over Bohachuk's jab. So yeah, I just felt that Ortiz obviously took the two knockdowns, and I think that was the spur for him to say, okay, I've been knocked down. I have to count that as a 10-8 round against me, and therefore I can't afford to lose a single round. And that's what made this fight interesting all the way through to the very end, and to the point that even in the last round, there was a lot for both Bohachuk and Ortiz to fight in order to actually get the win at the very end in that last round. So yeah, I mean, if I look at every minute of every round, I might see it slightly differently. But as I said, from what I could see, I just felt Ortiz did look like he had landed slightly better punches. He showed a little bit more variety. But having said that, I look at Ortiz's face and I'm like, wow, Bohachuk pretty much did a number on him. You know, he spoiled his face a little bit, and he would have been in pain the next day, no doubt. But looks, you know, from what I saw, very, very entertaining fight.
Cool. So Philip has mentioned in the chat, he said he scored it 114, 112 to Bohachuk, so therefore he had it 6 rounds apiece with the 2 knockdowns. He also says both guys stole a few good years of health from each other. That's quite possible. See if there's anything else in here regarding that fight. Doesn't look like it, not yet anyway. So yeah, no, okay, so not something that we usually do. Sporty Sports says I'm comfortable with the judges' cards. Yeah, that's fair. Obviously it was a majority decision, so one judge had it a draw, which technically would have been 7 rounds to 5 for Ortiz, and then the other 2 had it 112, 114, so that was 8 rounds to 4, or 4 rounds to 8 if you want to be correct on the side of the screen that they were on. But yeah, again, I don't have any issue with their scorecards. But having said that, if Bohachuk had got the decision, even though I scored it the other way when I watched it back, I wouldn't have argued. It was one of those fights where I think Ortiz did enough, but I can see the arguments if you want to be sort of generous to Bohachuk on a couple of occasions there. And remember, he only has to technically draw the fight to win it. And since I did give him 2 draw rounds, there's every conceivable metric could say that he could have been awarded those rounds instead. So yeah, it was just a great fight, which does deserve a rematch, but I almost don't want a rematch because it won't be as good. I doubt it will live up to it because both guys, even though they knew each other from sparring, they now know each other in the ring as well, and they both are going to now make adjustments that are going to be nullifying tactics as opposed to just trying to get to work and win every second. So yeah, I can't see a rematch being as good, in my personal opinion. But yeah, look, with that being said, we've got obviously, Turkey Al-Sheikh looking that he wants to make Ortiz versus Crawford, although Ortiz seems to have other ideas that he wants to face Sebastian Fundora or the winner of Fundora versus Spence if it happens. There's some other little what looks like shenanigans going on behind the scenes. So look, there's a lot going on at 154 at the moment. It's very interesting, and I guess we'll have to wait and see kind of what happens sort of after that. Shout out to Jack Knight, just in attendance. Check us on the playback. It's a really pretty short show this week, and we're going to keep it that way because we're going to respect time. So Tony, give them your socials again, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, guys. So once again, Pugilistboy on YouTube and Twitter. But on Instagram, where most of my content is downloaded, it's Pugilistboy. Just so you're aware, I've got extended footage of my boxing content is on YouTube. So the footage that you see on Instagram is shortened because of the fact that I can't upload as much minutes on Instagram as I can on YouTube. So more footage from the boxing program that I saw in Paris, the finals, including extended play of Bakidir Jalalov's final.
Okay, and as you guys know, obviously, BaseDaKID, the Hardcore Casual, is the YouTube channel. Instagram is BaseDaKID, and so is Threads. Twittex is B_A_S_E, and TikTok is BaseDaKID.thc. Haven't uploaded anything on that in a little while, but I will be doing again shortly. Again, BaseDaKID.thc. The casual stream will be taking place on Thursday this week, as I said before. So for anyone new joining, don't look for it tomorrow because I will actually be out, but it will be taking place 7:30 on Thursday. I'm hoping I'll be able to get a video out tomorrow to satiate the people that I know expect Wednesday night, day, evening content from me, etc. So yeah, and then I'll be looking to get a couple new people on the channel over the next sort of weeks or so, and also on this channel to do interviews. I've got some stuff lined up, so hopefully that will take place really soon. But yeah, with that being said, thank you very much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we will be back next week. Until then, peace.